We are. We are. Uh, we are or we're not? Are we or are we not? We are. In chapter 4 of Hilchos Schiros, the laws of rentals or the guardians. There's 4 ways that I could have this object that belongs to someone else in my possession rightfully. Either I'm a guard, 4 types of guardians of this. I am watching this as a guardian for free. Second is I'm paid to watch this as a guardian. Third is I'm a guardian over this because I borrowed it from you. And fourth is I'm a guardian of this because I rented this from you. Those are the 4 different ways that we can have something in our possession of another person and that we have responsibility thereof. So we spoke the foundation of that yesterday. Now we go further to understand the details of this law. So chapter 4, when a person rents a donkey, so it's rental now, right? So rental is like a well, actually it becomes a bit of a debate. Okay, let's to lead through the mountains and instead leads it through the valley. He's not liable if it slips, even though he went against the intentions of the owners, right? I rented this donkey and I told the owner that I'm going up mountains. But in the end, I changed of plan. I went through down valleys and it slipped, right? And the fact that I didn't do what I said I was going to do, so you might think, well, therefore you're liable. Because if I went up the mountain and it slipped, that's that's how I rented it. I rented it for this purpose. I used it for its purpose, and therefore I'm not obliged to pay. I'm not liable, right? Um, so he's not liable even though, right? If it is harm due to heat, the renter is liable because there's greater heat in the valley than there is on top of the mountain. So then you are, because then you are responsible for what happened, and that's called pshia. That's called negligence, right? But if it just slipped, it's a normal thing, or slipping going up or going down, are I guess are so to speak equal. Now, if he rented it to lead it through the valley and instead he leaves it through the mountain, he is liable if it slips, because one is more likely to slip in a mountain than in a valley. If it was harm due to heat, the renter is not liable, since the valleys are warmer than mountains, because there is a wind blowing in the mountains. If, however, it becomes overheated due to the effort in climbing the heights, he is liable. Similar laws apply in analogous situations, right? So it got overheated because it's climbing rather than going down. It's easier to go down than it is to go up. So if this donkey then died or got, or something got, something happened to it, then you would be liable. Again, because you rented it with a specification, right? Like today, if you rent a car and you say, and it's clear that the car can only be used in Quebec, and you went to the States with it, right? And then you had an accident, so then you're liable, by way of example, even though there usually isn't restrictions, but sometimes there are restrictions in a rental. Similarly, if a person rents a cow to plow on a mountain and plows it in a valley, the renter is not liable should the cylinder of the plow break. The owner of the cow may sue the workers who did plowing. Oh, that's interesting. Similarly, if the renter did not go against the owner's instructions and the cylinder of the plow broke, the owner of the cow may sue the workers, but not the renter. If he rented it to plow in a valley instead he plowed on the mountain, the cylinder of the plow breaks, the renter is liable, the renter may sue the workers. I want to get clear about the renters over here. I mean, so there's 3 parties in this one. Till now, we've been speaking about 2 parties, right? We've been speaking about the renter and the owner, right? Now there's the one who's doing the work is separate from the renter. So he rented it and he then hired workers, and those workers, now we have different instances over here, which is interesting. Need to understand it exactly. Doesn't explain over here. Let me see if I can find it here.
Survival in the valley, but not in the mountain, the worker.
Okay.
But eventually sue the worker.
Mhm.
That's the bottom.
So a renter is uh, the idea is like this. I don't clearly get the reason why, but the point is like this. If the animal, something happens to the animal, then you're not liable as a renter because you did the work that you were supposed to do. When you do the work that you're supposed to. But here's not the animal. It's the cylinder that there's a cylinder that propels the blade, and I guess it breaks. Right. That's the blade that is now tilling the soil or plowing the soil, right? That's not the animal itself.
In the valley.
Whatever. Let's before we get there. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that breaks. There is a responsibility. The question is now, who's the responsible one? So if the workers are responsible, and therefore he will sue the workers, the owner of the cow, right? Because the plow came with it, I guess. Right? Now, but that,
Workers don't have a contract with the owner.
right, that's what I don't get. Right. I don't get that.
We're just-
But it's not transferred for some reason. It's not transferred to the renter, and they're responsible. I don't exactly get why. Right now, if he didn't do according to what he rented it for, right? In other words, he rented for the valley and said he did the mountain, and therefore that's harder to do. So therefore he broke the contract, so therefore the renter is liable. Now, in the end, he may sue the workers. He may sue the renter may sue the because they did it. In others, they're the one. I understand what it is. There's a fact over here. It's the fact is who did the damage. It's not about the animal, right? The animal, if it died or got hurt because of what you did, then you're not responsible. But here it's not. Here it's about a damage that was done to the cylinder, right? So in the case of where he did everything appropriately, so the damage was done by the workers. So they did the damage, they have to pay.
They were negligent. The worker.
I don't know if it's negligent. I don't think it's negligence. They're responsible. They did damage. They have to pay. Right? There isn't a contract. It's irrelevant. They did the damage. So therefore they're responsible to pay.
If
right?
they were hired to plow a field and the person who hired them knows this field is full of rocks or whatever, and said, take this machine and plow it, why should they be held responsible for the blade breaking?
Because they actually broke it. In other words,
Was it they,
so,
or was it the terrain and the conditions they were working?
but they're working, so they see the terrain, right? I'm not exactly clear on this. I'm only explaining the way it's being, I understand it, but I don't get why that is exactly.
Mhm.
Because like you said, the workers have nothing to do with the owner. He didn't make a contract with them. So then why would they be workers responsible? If anything, the renter should pay the owner. And then if he wants to take a claim and sue the workers because they were either negligent or whatever the case may be, so that I get, but that's not what it's saying here. And I'm not clear. I'm on a WhatsApp group. I'm gonna ask a question, see if I can get an answer on it.
The renter made a decision for the mountain instead of the agreement of the valley.
Not talking when you broke it. We're talking when he did exactly what he was supposed to, right? And he's still, the owner is going after the workers, but he has no relationship with the workers, right? So why would that be? Okay.
He didn't go according to the,
Oh, what is the ruling regarding the workers who broke a plow while plowing? They must pay. Halacha 2. Who must pay? The one who holds the utensil while plowing. If, however, the field has several plateaus, they share the liability for the cost of the cylinder, both of the person holding and guiding the pole and the person holding the utensil. In other words, there's a couple of workers who specifically is the one who specifically is responsible for the damage, right? That's what we're saying over here. And I guess it depends on different circumstance who that's going to be. Again, yeah. Okay, need to look into that. Number 3, if a person rented a cow to thresh beans and he used it to thresh grain, he is not liable if it slips, because I guess that's a lesser degree of chance for it to slip. If he rented it for grain and used it to thresh beans, then he is liable for the beans called slippage. Right?
we're talking about the worker or the renter is liable.
The renter. An incident occurred with regard to a person who rented his donkey to a colleague and told him, do not go with it on the way to Peakwood Raven, where there is water, but rather on the way to Nerish Raven, where there is no water. The person who hired the donkey went on the way of Peakwood Raven, and the donkey died. There was no witnesses who were able to testify to which way he went. But the person himself admitted, I went on the way of Peakwood Raven, but there was no water. Right? And the donkey died due to natural causes. So he told the truth, right? But he said that there was no water there. And there's no witnesses, right? So now what's the law? So Sage said, since there are witnesses that there is always water, Peakwood Raven, he's obligated to pay. For he deviated from the instructions of the owner, and we do not say of what value would it have been for him to lie in a situation where witnesses were present.
Only one not. He wouldn't lie if his witnesses, only if the valley.
In other words, we don't say that he must be telling the truth because,
They didn't go in the wrong way.
right. Why would he lie when there could be witnesses, seeing that there wasn't water there? So as we're taking it based on the fact that there was always water there, therefore he's obligated to pay.
Even if he agrees that it was not, okay, right.
Okay, number 4, when a person rents an animal to bring 200 litra of wheat and instead brings 200 litra of barley, he's liable to if the animal dies. For the additional volume is more difficult to carry, and barley takes up more space than wheat. Okay, you knew that? Yeah. You got to become a farmer to learn this. Go. Yes. Okay. So the same laws apply if he hired an animal to carry grain and instead used it to carry straw. If, by contrast, you rent the animal to carry barley and instead he could be same weight of wheat, he's not liable if the animal dies. Similar principles apply in analogous situations.
So the amount that he was carrying was a weight?
Yes. Oh, well, no. No, it wasn't. Litra is not a weight.
It's not a weight,
It's not a weight. It's
it's a volume.
it's a volume, and the volume of 200 liter of barley is heavier than that of wheat.
More dense.
It's more dense, and therefore that's why he would be obligated if he rented it on condition that he's taking only 200 of wheat, right? Number 5, if a person rented an animal for a man to ride upon, he should not have a woman ride upon it. Let's see. If he rented it for a woman to ride upon, he may have a man ride upon it. And he may have a woman ride upon it, whether she is small or large, even if she is both nursing or and pregnant. Let's see what's going on over here. I don't know. Let's see. No. No. Very simple. Very simple. A woman generally will not be a good rider like a man, right? Oh, of course. I mean, that makes sense. The man was the one who did it was the what was the work went out and worked with the animals, right? The woman didn't go work with the animals, right? So he has much more experience. So if you put a woman on there and something's going to happen to the animal, she's not going to be as capable of preventing an injury, and therefore you're liable. Makes perfect sense. Huh? Yeah, no. Of course, this is a principle, right? So today, if we're talking about something else, then the principle would be different, right? But it's a principle that we're basing on. So, for example, if it's something that a woman is better at than the man, and she rented and she gave it to the man to take care of, right? Like you rented a baby, right?
There you go. That's a good one.
Right.
That's a good
You gave it to the man. Oh my gosh. Now you're liable.
one. It's all relative. All the time.
It's multitasking.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Like that.
All right, number 6. The following rules apply when a person rents an animal with the intent that it carry a burden of a specific weight, and the renter added to the weight. If he added a 30th up to the weight that he specified and the animal died, he is liable. If it's lesser measure, he's not liable. So up to a 30th, he's not liable. He must, however, pay the appropriate fee for the extra measure. In other words, he paid per weight, and now he added, even as less than a 30th, he still has to pay the extra as a result, right? If a renter rented an animal without specifying the measure, he may load upon it a burden that is the local standard for the animal. Then you go by local standard, not by what the contract was, right? If he added more than a 30th of the weight, it usually carries 30 measures of the loads, and it is 31, and it dies or becomes injured, he is liable because he went over the usual amount. Similarly, if a person loaded a ship with 1/30th more than the ordinary cargo and it sank, he is liable to make restitution for its worth. Number 7, when a person up to a 30th, you only pay for the extra, but you're not liable because that's within reason of what the contract was. Over a 30th or 30th and more, you're liable for the injury or the damage the injury to the animal, or the damage.
And if you're renting, it's by weight. And you put, let's say, less than a 30th, are you obligated to pay more?
Yeah, you just have prorate
Prorate the amount.
to the amount that you have to pay. Right? Because you're paying it per pound, right? Number 7, got it? Okay, when a person added one, huh?
10%, not the 30th, but
Okay.
Exchange.
We're learning Rambam. You remember that? So you're questioning the Rambam based on what modern day, I don't think that's a question. Huh? I don't think that's a question.
I'm used to it.
I know, no. No, he said it questioning.
Mhm.
He said it in a questioning way, right? I'm saying it's a comment, but not a question.
That's my forte.
But yeah, this is called color commentary.
Right?
Yeah, number 4, he scored last time was 3 months ago, When a person added 1 kav to the burden of a porter, and the porter was injured because of this burden, the other person is liable for his injury. For although the porter is conscious being and feels the weight of the extra burden, he might think that it feels heavy because he is ill. Wow. Interesting halacha, right? In other words, why are you putting it on the person who added, right? Now that you made up that you're giving this amount of weight and you gave more. So the porter, he's a conscious being. So he's aware of that. No, we don't say that. We don't say that. We don't put it on him, right? It's the person who gave the extra weight and he got injured, and that was not what the contract was. He's responsible. When a person rents a donkey with the intent of riding upon it, he may place his garments, his flask, and his food for this journey upon it. For it is not customary for a renter to stop at each inn to purchase food. So it's understood that food is part of you. The owner of the donkey may prevent the renter from carrying with him anything more. In other words, you can take your food, you can take your flask of water, right, and your clothing, but not more.
Like they carry on luggage.
I can't have carry on luggage. Yeah, that's right. You want to take more, you got to pay for it. Some of the owner of a donkey may place barley and straw for the donkey's food on it for that day. Right? That's now the donkey's food, but only for that day. The renter may prevent him from loading anything more, for it is possible for him to purchase these supplies at every inn. And others don't take more than a day's supply. Interesting. For himself, he could take more, but for the donkey, you can't. Therefore, if there's no place for him to purchase, he may load the food and food for his animal for the entire journey. Then, if there's no place. All of these guidelines apply when the person hires an animal without making specifications in a place where there is no known custom. If, however, there's an accepted local custom, everything follows that custom.
Log one.
Psh. As we've learned so many times, that always, whatever, either what the contract stipulation is, and if there's no contract stipulation, then it's based on the local custom. And if there isn't a local custom, then it's based on what Rambam writes over here.
See, that's law of the land.
Hmm?
Local custom, law of the land.
Yeah, it becomes the law. It's, it's custom doesn't mean it's the law. This is how, when you rent a donkey, this is what the local custom was in renting a right. As we didn't speak between us to make a specification, right? So since we didn't do that, now what's the law? Local custom. Right, custom is not something written in law necessarily. In other words, the custom over here is when you rent a donkey, you can only go 10 kilometers with it, right? You go more than 10 kilometers. We didn't speak that out, or we didn't have that written out in a contract. So then you got to go by the local custom. So you went 11, you're responsible now. You went over the local custom. It doesn't mean that it's written in law, but this is the way business is done, right? Business is not law. Business is the custom of law, of how business is done, rather, right?